So I wanted, before we get started, to let everyone know that I have a new podcast out, and it's called Meditations. If you like the Meditations segment of this current podcast, you'll like the Meditations podcast. It's nothing but 20 minutes of meditative sounds. And now, on with the podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Caesar's Palace for 12 rounds of boxing. In the red corner, from Los Angeles, California, wearing the red trunks with the gold trim, weighing in at 125 pounds, the lightweight champion of the world, Danny Little Red Lopez. Well, Bill, our winners get a home theater receiver. That's right. Experience the full potential of high-definition video with this 72-channel digital home theater receiver from Yamaha. But wait, that's not all. They also get a 5.1-channel surround sound system from Mirage. With 5 palm-sized speakers and a compact subwoofer cube, the MX 5.1 brings you huge immersive sound with Mirage's omnipolar technology. All from the Spiegel catalog, Chicago, Illinois, 60609. And they're taking closer order as down the stretch they come. Mr. Hot Stuff has 3 lengths to make up with chocolate candy last. On the rail, take the points behind that gallant son with chocolate candy gaining on the outside. In the lead is Pioneer of the Nile being tackled by chocolate candy. They're neck and neck as they come to the wire. And Pioneer of the Nile holds off chocolate candy and wins the Santa Anita Derby. And now, on your feet, time to greet holder of 14 NBA titles, your home team, your Los Angeles Lakers. Number 3 at 6'8", 5th year out of UCLA, playing forward, Trevor Ariza. Starting at center, number 17 at 7 feet, 4th year out of St. Andrews High School, Andrew Bynum. And at guard, number 24, 6'6", 13th season out of Loyal Marion High School, Kobe Bryant.
Antidepressants are fickle because everybody says you're supposed to give them about 4 weeks before you feel anything, which is strange. Feels like if you're depressed, the last thing you have is time. That's why it's a hotline, not a P.O. box. I got hooked up with this drug dealer over at the pharmacy, and she was the one who told me. She was like, just so you know, when you're on antidepressants, it takes about 4 weeks for you to feel anything. I was like, well, do you have a same-day option? Because I am depressed right now. Actually, I'm more depressed since you told me this. We are headed in the wrong direction right now. She was like, unfortunately, that's not how it works. Your brain needs time to become desensitized to the drug, about 4 weeks. That way, it won't notice the change. And I was like, so to be clear, I am to wait a month before I feel anything, at which point I will be so used to the drug that I will not feel anything? She's like, I think so, yeah. I was like, all right. Well, I'll put in these 4 weeks, but you should put in your 2.
Good morning. It's Tuesday, Trump Tuesday, July the 29th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have the headlines, patriotic shorts, motivation, Bishop Barron, Ayn Rand, and Donald Trump. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. Now, a little bit more of Stuart Varney.
The latest read on consumer confidence just coming to us. What's the number, Ashley?
Just came in 97.2, which is a strong number. By the way, Stu, the estimate for the consumer confidence reading was 95, so that is better than expected. We'll see if that has an impact on the market, but certainly better news on the consumer confidence number.
Confidence strong. Let's have a look at the latest read on job openings. Now, that's called the JOLTS number.
Yeah, at the end of June, the number came in at 7.437 million. That was a slight miss, nothing drastic. So it's pretty amazing that with moves to stop immigration, cuts to federal spending and the federal workforce, companies are still hiring workers. So a bit light of the expectation, but not a drastic decline.
Sorry, what was the job openings number again?
7.437 million.
Okay, got it. Lauren, thank you very much. Now this. The shooting in New York has rattled executive suites across the country. The 27-year-old man walked into 345 Park Avenue, Midtown Manhattan, carrying a rifle. He started shooting as soon as he entered the lobby, killing a police officer who was off duty at the time, and 2 others. He took the elevator to the 33rd floor, shot another person dead, and then took his own life. That office building houses executives from the NFL and the giant investment firm Blackstone. We do not know the motive for the shooter, but the moment the news was reported, thoughts turned to the execution-style killing of a United Healthcare executive that was just 5 blocks away last December. There is no doubt the shooter brought chaos to the building. Terrified employees barricaded themselves in their offices. Others ran for their lives. The possibility of disgruntled people, perhaps crazy people, targeting executives, that's not lost on Midtown Manhattan. Midtown Manhattan is the home to thousands of C-suite people. Many of them now think of themselves as targets. Inevitably, thoughts turn to Zoran Mandami, who is the leading Democrat in the New York mayoral race. On X, he wrote this: "I'm heartbroken to learn of the horrific shooting, grateful for all the first responders on the ground," end quote. Okay, but it's hard to forget what he said about defunding the police just a couple of years ago. He said the police department was wicked and corrupt. Defund it, dismantle it, end the cycle of violence, he wrote. Well, okay, he's toned that down recently, but he still wants to cut police overtime and send social workers to handle some crime situations. This is not the time to reduce the presence or effectiveness of law enforcement. Think about it. How could a man walk around Park Avenue through crowded rush-hour streets carrying a rifle without challenge? How would Mayor Mandani reassure New Yorkers, many high-powered executives, that they will be safe? It doesn't help that Mandami seems to have little interest in the rich, except to say he will abolish billionaires. It doesn't help that the leading mayoral candidate formed his policies around bashing capitalism and capitalist companies, like the ones at 345 Park Avenue. Second hour of Varney, just getting started.
And that was Stuart Varney and his My Take, and he's wrong about what he should have said was the murderer went into the building, murdered somebody, and committed suicide. That's the way he should have put it. Remember, vocabulary is important. Using the right vocabulary means you can't lose. Using the wrong vocabulary means you can't win. Back in a minute. Thank you. So as far as the masks on federal agents are concerned, the administration's doing it wrong. They come out and say, well, we put masks on the agents because they're under a threat of violence. That's good for communicating to conservatives and Republicans, but you got to be able to convince the Democrats that what you're doing is right. And the way to do that is to let everybody know that you're masking the agents for health and safety reasons. You would say that the illegal aliens that come across the border are not vaccinated and have no inoculations, and so they're full of diseases such as measles, whooping cough, and COVID-19. And it is our responsibility to keep our agents safe and healthy. And then after you do that, then you blame the Democrats for being anti-worker, saying that the Democrats obviously don't care about the health and safety of workers anymore since they're no longer the party of labor. That's the best way to handle it. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, the Patriotic Short.
The bomb had been launched already, and it was on the way. 11 seconds. Now, how much of that 11 seconds is left? Not very much. Okay, and zoom. I heard the plane fly over the ship. Boom. The bomb followed. That's exactly what happened. Number 1 engine room. There was a hole in the side of that destroyer 60 feet wide. There was nothing there. There was no bottom to it. I looked in that hole. There was no bottom to that ship at that area. That was gone completely. So the only thing holding it together was the starboard side. That was all was holding it together. And then I talked to a corpsman that was at the quarterdeck, and there was a second-class boatswain named Bro. He was one of the whole bodies that we found. Him and Richard Alexandra. Piece of the border plate landed on top of him. About a piece of steel about as big as a car motor. Come right down on his head, smashed him to the deck. There's only 2 bodies that we found that were whole. Rest were pieces. 35 lost or drowned, whatever, and 50 wounded. And I wasn't considered injured till 58 years later when they decided I had post-traumatic stress.
And that was the Patriotic Short. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, motivation.
The reason most people fail is because they give up what they want most for what they want now.
So often the easy path that calls to us to be weak for that moment, to break down for that moment, to give in to the desire and the short-term gratification. But the discipline will not allow that. Discipline means taking the hard road, the uphill road, to do what's right.
Discipline is doing what you said you were going to do when you don't feel like doing it, when you felt like doing it in the first place. That's all it is. When you fell in love with it, you were just like, let's go, let's go, let's go. But then stuff's going to happen. Discipline means that you dominate when you feel like it and you dominate when you don't feel like it.
The discipline calls for strength and fortitude and will. It won't accept weakness. It won't tolerate another breakdown. The discipline can seem like it's your worst enemy. But the reality is, discipline is your best friend. It will take care of you like nothing else can.
It's so easy to put things off. So easy to say, you can do it tomorrow. Well, I want you to reprogram your brain and tell yourself that tomorrow is not a viable option. Tomorrow doesn't work. You do it today. You get it done today. That's what you do.
Tomorrow. Ain't no such thing as tomorrow. We only got today. If you want it to happen, get your butt up and make it happen. If you want it to happen, rise and grind.
You've got to outwork, outlast, and outperform the person you were yesterday, becoming better than your past self. When you continue to do that day after day after day, you're unstoppable. You're on a relentless pursuit of excellence, and the only way to get to that point is by disciplining yourself every single day of your life, no matter what.
If you don't improve your skill, if you don't do everything you can, if you don't stop cutting corners, stop taking it easy, Stop letting that little voice win the fucking war in your brain that says, tomorrow, I'll start Monday. It's not that big of a deal. Give yourself a break. You work really hard. You deserve this. If you don't silence that fucking voice, you will lose everything. No compromise, no exceptions, ever. That's the test you have to pass in order to earn your way into the life that you desire. It's an opportunity to prove to everyone else, but most importantly, yourself, what you are really made of. It's an opportunity to prove that you're a winner. It's an opportunity to prove you are what you say you are in your head when you look in the mirror. When you look in the mirror and you say, there goes a bad motherfucker, you actually believe it.
I know you're great, and I dare you to be great. I challenge you to be great. I challenge you to be great in every single thing you do. You gotta learn to close your ears to everybody. You gotta learn to close your ears to everything. You gotta learn to block out the distractions, and you gotta learn to get focused, all right? Discipline is you do it so long and so hard, and you're so passionate about it that even when you don't feel like it, you still operate at the highest level. Embrace the process, trust the process, but most importantly, you gotta respect the process. Talent will never supersede it.
Nothing great comes from a position of comfort. Everything worthwhile, everything that is great comes from being uncomfortable. And if you can get used to being uncomfortable, your fucking limits are non-existent.
It's easier to watch greatness. It's easier to go see greatness than it is to put in the time, to put in the energy, to discipline yourself, to sacrifice. It's easier. And so that's why you average. And so you're frustrated because you're not living like you should live. You can't stay where you are and go where you're trying to go. And many of you love your comfort zone too much. You love it. You love security too much. And I'm telling you, you can stay where you are. You can. But you can't stay where you are and try to go where you're going.
You have to do the things that you don't feel like doing because you know it needs to be fucking done.
I need you to look at yourself in the mirror and say, come on, quit, stop playing. I deserve to see what my life would look like if I gave 120%. I made my last excuse yesterday. I came up with my last reason yesterday of why I can't do what I'm supposed to do. Oh, I don't feel so good today. Get your lazy, sick ass up out of bed. Your only commitment is to the activity, not to the grand scheme, not to the big picture. It's to do the thing. Everything that's keeping you from doing what you're supposed to do, I need you to put it behind you and say, yesterday was the last day for that foolishness. Yesterday was the last day to say, I don't have enough money to do this. I don't have what it takes. I'm not smart enough. No more defeats. No more defeats, man. You can do it. You can make it happen, but you can't do it procrastinate. All I want you to do is what you said you were going to do. I want you to stop talking about it. I want you to stop telling people about it and get it done. Whether you feel like it or not.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little bit of meditation. And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you, and now the Daily Stoic.
The fountain of goodness. Dig deep within yourself, for there is a fountain of goodness ever ready to flow if you will keep digging. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 7.59. Today, we could hope that goodness comes our way. Good news, good weather, good luck. Or we could find it ourselves, in ourselves. Goodness isn't something that's going to be delivered by mail. You have to dig it up inside your own soul. You find it within your own thoughts.
And that was the Daily Stoic. And now, His Excellency, Bishop Robert Barron.
A lot of the critics of religion today will say, well, isn't that nice? Religious people, they don't really know these things. They can't prove them scientifically. They have no good arguments for them. Rather, they're playing a kind of make-believe. I'll believe certain things on the basis of no evidence. That's not what believe means when serious Christians use the term. It does not mean accepting things wildly on the basis of no evidence. It's one of the most misunderstood words in the religious lexicon. Authentic belief is never infra-rational. What I mean is it's never below reason. It's always supra-rational. It's beyond reason.
And that was His Excellency Bishop Robert Barron. And now, the Ayn Rand thought of the day. Quote, "It is obvious what the fraudulent issue of fascism versus communism accomplishes. It sets up, as opposites, two variants of the same political system. It eliminates the possibility of capitalism. It switches the choice of freedom or dictatorship into which kind of dictatorship, thus establishing dictatorship as an inevitable fact and offering only a choice of rulers," unquote. And that was Ayn Rand from the chapter Extremism or the Art of Smearing from the book Capitalism, the Unknown Ideal. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, psychopathy.
In the shadowy corners of human psychology lurks Machiavellianism. Named after the Italian diplomat Niccolo Machiavelli, it's an intriguing concept indeed. Picture this: a personality trait so shrouded in mystery, it's often associated with cunning and manipulation. Those with high Machiavellian traits are strategic, often using others as pawns in their game. They're adept at persuasion, charming their way into the hearts and minds of those around them. Yet they remain detached, their emotions concealed. They play the long game, their eyes fixed on the prize. Some might say it's the darker side of human nature, but remember, it's all about perspective. In the game of life, sometimes it's the Machiavellians who hold the winning hand.
My little brother means everything.
And that was psychopathy. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now a little bit of Maria, then Stu Varney.
Ashley. Yeah, well, going on that note, my life depends on the United States Senate schedule, so I'm hoping that Leader Thune gets a deal with some of these confirmations and these appropriation packages. It's been a very busy 6 months, and everyone needs a little bit of break this August.
Well, look, we had Senator Rick Scott who did tell us. He's like, I'm willing to stay. Senator Fisher telling us, willing to stay. Ashley Davis, Michael Lee, thank you so much. Varney and Company is up right now, and Stuart Varney, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Cheryl, and good morning, everyone. Fear and anxiety gripped the executive suite in New York and around the country. Monday night at rush hour, a 27-year-old man walked into the lobby of a prestigious office building on Park Avenue in Midtown Manhattan. He started shooting, killing 4, including an off-duty police officer working as a security guard, and an executive at Blackstone, the giant investment firm. The executive was Wesley Lepatner, senior managing director in the real estate group. His motive, the shooter, not known. The contents of a suicide note have not been fully revealed. The police say he had mental issues. The shooting brings back memories of the execution-style murder of a United Healthcare executive just 5 blocks away last December. And it brings in Zoran Mandani, the anti-police socialist who was the leading Democrat candidate for mayor. Crime, the police, those 2 issues are now front and center in the election. To the markets, stocks keep going up. They're up again this morning. The S&P has hit a string of records. So has the Nasdaq. The Dow is just a fraction from its all-time high. The Dow up maybe 20 points this morning, 10 points up for the S&P. Nasdaq, though, going strong, 86 points higher pre-market. The Bitcoin price, $118, $1,000, 900. The 10-year Treasury yielding around 440. You're back to 439 right now, not much change. The 2-year at 391. Politics. President Trump wrapping up his golf and trade trip to Scotland. He opened his new golf course, named after his mother. He's looking for progress on the trade talks with China, which are now in progress again in Stockholm. We're told those talks are slow going. The South Koreans sent a delegation to Scotland trying to beat the Friday tariff deadline. They asked for time with Howard Lutnick, and they got it. Stay tuned for a deal. On the show today, what happened to all the tariff gloom and doom? When the tariff policy was announced, the left predicted a recession. It hasn't happened. In fact, tariffs seem to be working to America's advantage. The Democrats have no response to the deal with the European Union, which tilted heavily in America's favor. And yes, we are still on melt-up watch. No sign that the rally is in serious trouble at this point. Up again today. It's Tuesday, July the 29th, 2025.
And that was Stuart Varney, Nonprofit News Now, and he screwed it up. He should have said a murderer went into the building and committed murder. The way he puts it gives the left an advantage. Okay, it's murder, not what he said. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now from a book that's called Good Inside. What's the opposite of understanding? For this argument's sake, it's convincing. Convincing is the attempt to prove a singular reality, to prove that only one thing is true. Convincing is an attempt to be right, and as a result make the other person wrong. It rests on the assumption that there's only one correct viewpoint. And then my question is this supposed to be convincing? Further, convincing has one goal in mind, being right. And here's the unfortunate consequence of being right. The other person feels unseen and unheard, at which point most people become infuriated and combative, because it feels as if the other person does not accept your realness or worth. Feeling unseen and unheard makes connection impossible. Understanding two things are true and convincing one thing is true are diametrically opposed ways of approaching other people, so a powerful first step in any interaction is to notice which mode you're in. When you're in one thing is true mode, you're judgmental of and reactive to someone else's experience because it feels like an assault on your own truth. As a result, you will seek to prove your own point of view, which in turn makes the other person defensive because they need to uphold the realness of their experience. In one thing is true mode, exchanges escalate quickly. Each person thinks they're arguing about the content of the conversation when in fact they're trying to defend that they are a real, worthy person with a real, truthful experience. And again, is this convincing? Back in a minute. Thank you. So I had a personal situation that happened today, communications-wise, with a comrade. So there's an individual at the gym that I am barely acquainted with. We say hello to each other But I don't know his name. He doesn't know my name. We've never introduced ourselves to each other. And today he asked me a personal question. I felt uncomfortable with it for obvious reasons. But I answered it anyway. I felt intimidated. I felt, again, it's an awkward situation to me. And so I went ahead and answered it. I allowed myself to be intimidated into answering the question. Bad move. Wrong. I shouldn't have done that. What I should have done was ask a question. But I did. I answered the question. And this guy then does what communists frequently do. He asked a follow-up question. Asked me, well, why don't you do X, Y, Z? And so that was the point in which I realized I'm getting behind the 8 ball here. And that if I don't go ahead and take control of this conversation, I'm going to be answering all kinds of personal questions from now until he gets bored, runs out of energy, and he's going to end up with all kinds of information about me, and I still don't know who he is. So I went ahead and asked him, how do you know I'm not already taking care of it? And he just stared at me. And then he said, huh? And so I repeated the question, how do you know I'm not already taking care of this? And he says, well, I don't. I mean, I would have no way of knowing. I said, exactly. And you're not going to either. And then I went back to what I was doing. That was the end of the conversation. Winner, winner, chicken dinner. But I could have and should have gotten control of this conversation from the very beginning. So, lesson learned. The other thing that about this is what the left does because they don't allow themselves to judge people. That's their rule. No judging. Okay, fine, whatever. But the problem is if you can't judge, how do you live? You got to judge. It's protean. You can change. You can't delete it. You can't create it. You just can change its form. It's part of life. So the way they'll do it is they'll walk up somebody that they want to judge, and they start by asking a question. And very often, maybe they'll ask you permission to ask the question. Can I ask you a question? And so your curiosity takes over, and you're thinking, wow, what can he be asking? Maybe he's going to ask me a question about where to send $10 million, or whether or not I want an armful of puppies, something like that. And it never is. It's always something disappointing. It's always something frustrating. But they will ask, can I ask you a question? When you say yes, then they go ahead and ask you a personal question, like what this guy did. He asked me a personal question. Then he asked another question. That other question, the follow-up question, was meant to be a criticism, a judgment. That's the way the left judges. That they will allow each other to judge as long as they do it in the form of a question. Okay, so be aware of that. And remember also, it's tougher to be a lefty in this country than it is to be a righty, to be a conservative. The left, they're harder on themselves and each other than they ever are on conservatives. And there's plenty of examples that you can see in the media of this. There was a guy that I played in the psychopathy section of my podcast that is a podcaster, and he was complaining about when he talks, he can't be free to speak. He talks about self-censorship, that he has to censor himself because otherwise he gets all kinds of mean, nasty feedback from his own people, from people on the left, because he's a lefty. And he made all that plain. And so, again, it's tougher to be a lefty than it is to be a conservative. They have to play by the rules. Once they say, well, I'm a liberal, I'm a communist, I'm a socialist, I'm a whatever, they have to make sure they play by the rules, and they know everybody's watching them to make sure that they play by the rules. So that's why they will ask questions in the form of their judgments, instead of walking up to you and saying, well, gee, that's really stupid. What you should do is do blah, 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 blah. They'll ask questions instead because they're allowed to do that. So, anyways, back in a minute. Thank you. And now, what does the phrase, if you're explaining you're losing, mean in debates? This was said by Ronald Reagan, speaking of political campaigns. From the perspective of your audience, if you have to explain yourself, you come off looking desperate to convince. As a consequence, you lose the high ground. From a more philosophical perspective, when you have a clear conscience and strong conviction towards the positions you take, your values, truth, and direction, you don't need the opinions or consent of others. As a consequence, you don't need to explain yourself. However, if you yourself are not convinced of the validity and truth of your position, or you can't fully justify your choices, then you continue to expel words in an attempt to create the illusion of certainty. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Jeffrey Mead.
Don't forget to boycott American Eagle for their racist shit online, talking about blue jeans and white people. Boycott American Eagle. Boycott the shit out of them. Boycott American Eagle. Do not buy them and cancel this person.
Again, these people are so insufferable, and takes like this are desperate and pathetic. If you're in the market for jeans, I recommend go get you some American Eagle jeans. We absolutely should not let these people control the culture and try to cancel people at will. It's pathetic. And this is one of the reasons why the Democratic Party is at record low favorability ratings. This is one of the reasons people are sick of this. I've said it before, I'll say it again. It's a funny play on words. This is not about eugenics. It's just the Democratic Party and Democrats, they have to rely on some type of victimhood to create a narrative, or they have to create an enemy to fight against. They're manufacturing outrage about this because they have nothing better to do. The fact that these people hit record, make these videos, watch them, and then decide to post them is astounding to me. Oh my gosh, she said she has good genes, and American Eagle is trying to sell jeans. They're Nazis. They're fascists now. We need to cancel them. Get a life. Go do something valuable. These people have to manufacture outrage because that is what their party depends on. It depends on emotional manipulation, victimhood, and outrage. Without that, it seems the current Democratic Party doesn't know what to do. So they have to create racial issues where there are none. Like I said before, get a life. Also, just a reminder.
And that was Jeffrey Mead, the Jeffrey Mead on Instagram. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now the preamble to the Declaration of Independence. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Candace.
Qui soit manichéisé, aime pas. Vous allez être patient, pas de pression à l'équipe ODLC, évidemment. Sinon, je vous envoie le talisman tel quel, pas de mots, et ça, je vous l'envoie tout de suite. Vous choisissez, c'est comme vous voulez. Voilà, on en est là. Parce que j'en peux plus de votre pression du matin au soir. Je suis comme ça en ce moment, vous avez compris. Agité comme jamais. Donc, tous les talismans sold out d'aujourd'hui, vous attendez, parce qu'elle est 21h37. suis en train de faire les mots. Et ça sort pas comme ça. Faut que je me connecte avec le ciel. C'est toute une histoire. Je peux pas écrire une connerie. Parce que de toute façon, à la base, le mot est destiné par vous. Donc, en fait, chacun qui envoie, ouais, attention, moi, je m'appelle comme ça. Je m'en fous comment vous appelez. Parce que même quand je fais des consultations, je n'ai même pas besoin de votre nom et prénom. Je sais exactement quel talisman c'est pour chacun et je sais la réponse. Tacalac, c'est organisé. Donc, même dis pas, je l'ai envoyé chez la voisine. Je sais très bien que c'est le vôtre. L'œil de la connaissance, c'est très bien. Moi, je m'en fous. Je suis plus une secrétaire comme une idiote en train d'écrire. Ils savent très bien à qui ça correspond. Moi, je peux plus. Voilà. Donc, prenez votre temps tranquillement. Moi, c'est envoyé quand c'est envoyé. De toute façon, j'ai jusqu'à 21 jours sur le site internet pour vous faire une livraison. Donc, si vous voulez, je vous envoie sans prédiction. Je vous écris des conneries, c'est comme vous voulez. Plus après, je vais les faire magnétiser un par un. Donc, calmez-vous. C'est tout courant parce que je suis esquinté au sol. Je suis dans un état catastrophique. On n'a jamais vu un cas pareil. C'est lamentable. Après, la team m'appelle toutes les 2 minutes pour me contrarier de celui-là, il a dit ci, celui-là, il a dit ça et compagnie. M'ont cassé les pieds. Moi, je suis gentil, je vous fais des talismans alors que je pourrais m'arrêter là. Je fais une consultation comme d'habitude. Les terminatos, c'est pas genre vous achetez votre talisman et c'est bon. Non, ça doit passer par l'œil de la connaissance. Je dois toucher chacun de vos talismans. Surtout, vous enlevez jamais le cordon parce qu'il y a une cancre qui a dit oh, c'était beaucoup plus beau, j'ai mis sur une chaîne, ça a été une catastrophe. Évidemment, personne ne vous a demandé de le toucher. C'est tout court. Donc, vous arrêtez avec cette histoire.
And that was Candace. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Donald Trump.
Never, ever give up. There'll be times in your life you'll want to quit, you'll want to go home. So many people that have really hit big have gone against the tide. But you have to have great confidence in yourself. You have to be the right person. There are very few people that can pull it off. But when you pull it off, it's great. In order to be successful, and you people are well on the road to success, you have to find out what makes you excited, what makes you want to get up each morning and go to work. If you love what you do and dedicate yourself to your work, then you will gain momentum. You will gain that momentum. You have to. And each success will create another success. I always tell this to people. You have to know whether or not you continue to have the momentum. And if you don't have it, that's okay. Because you're going to go on and you're going to learn and you're going to do things that are great. But you have to know about the word momentum. But the big thing, never quit, never give up, do something you love. When you do something you love, as a scout, I see that you love it. But when you do something that you love, you'll never fail. What you're going to do is give it a shot again and again and again. You're ultimately going to be successful. And remember this, you're not working. Because when you're doing something that you love, like I do, of course I love my business, but when you do something that you love, remember this, it's not work. So you'll work 24/7, you're going to work all the time, and at the end of a year, you're not really working. You don't think of it as work. When you're not doing something that you like, or when you're forced in to do something that you really don't like, that's called work, and it's hard work and tedious work. So as much as you can, do something that you love, work hard, and never, ever give up, and you're going to be tremendously successful. I went to the Wharton School of Finance, and in that school, I met a lot of people heading industry today and over the past, very smart people. But I've watched some of the people grow. I've watched some of the most incredible, brilliant students, and they didn't make it like other people made it because they didn't have that drive. They didn't have that never give up ability. I don't know if it's an ability or if you have it, just you can't quit. And I've seen people quitting, and if they would have held out longer, they would have been successful. I've seen it so much. I've seen some of the most brilliant people in the world that never made it because they were quitters. One of the most important things, never, ever quit. Never quit. They were just quitters. They would quit. They just couldn't take it. They couldn't whatever. One of the things about loving what you do is that it's not work, and therefore you don't quit automatically. It's a lot easier not to quit. But you can never give up. Now, you have to also have flexibility, though. You can't necessarily say, I'm never giving up, and you got to be able to weave and bob. You don't have to go through a concrete wall when you can go over it or around it or under it or something. You have to have flexibility. You have to always be able to change course a little bit. Maybe always with that same goal, but don't quit. We're on this planet for a very, very small period of time, and achievement is something that really gives you great pleasure. And when you achieve something, that's great, but now on to the next. Very important, you keep going. I've always believed in positive thinking. At the same time, I don't want to mislead. I also believe in aspiring, in terms of what you're doing, aspiring to protect against the downside. You can't just be this wonderful guy walking around, everything's positive, because unfortunately, that's not the way the world is. I love to tell people to think about the challenges so that when they do come along.
Until now, game changer. They have a wire trimming head that's universal. It's going to fit any weed.
When you do come along, you're ready.
I was no different when I was 20 years old, believe me. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to get out of Brooklyn. I said, Pop, I love you, but I want to get out of Brooklyn. I love Brooklyn, but I want to get out. And I love those buildings. I looked from Queens and Brooklyn, and I'd see those big buildings, those big skyscrapers in Manhattan. I said, Pop, that's what I want to do. That's what I wanted to do. I was approached by NBC and Mark Burnett to do a show that they had entitled The Apprentice. Now, I had an agent, a big agent, and he was a great agent. But I shook Mark Burnett's hand, and NBC was dying to do it, and they said, we'd only do it if you do it, Trump. You're the only one we want, nobody else. So I was honored, and I said, okay, I'm going to do it. I knew nothing about television, nothing. So my agent calls me. I heard you accepted doing The Apprentice. I won't let you do it. Jim said, Donald, in the history of television, there's never been a primetime show about business or what you're trying to do that succeeded. I said, I wish you told me that. Then he said, and only 3% of the shows that go on television make it. So in other words, you're probably going to have a failure anyway, but you'll definitely have a failure. I'm your agent. I do not want you to do this show. So I said, Jim, I have a problem. I shook the hand of NBC, and I shook the hand of Mark Burnett. I said, I shook the hand. He said, doesn't matter. You can't do it. I said, I have to do it. Anyway, time goes by. We do the show. It goes on. It starts at number 10. It goes to 8. It goes to 5 and 4. It then goes to number 2. And the following week, it's the number 1 show on television. And I knew it was good because I didn't know what the word rating meant. I didn't know, is that good or bad? But I knew it was good because the chairman of NBC called me. It was my birthday. And it was 7 a.m. And he called. He said, Donald, I just wanted to wish you a happy birthday. Now, to me, as an instinctive businessman, that means we're doing okay, right? My wife said, who was that? I said, that was the chairman of NBC. He wanted to wish me happy. She said, darling, it's like 6:30 a.m. So we went out, and I get a call from the agent. And he calls me also. But his call was like at 8. He said, Donald, congratulations. I'd like to see you. I said, Jim, what do you want to see me about? He said, well, your show just hit number 1. And if you don't mind, I think I'm entitled to a very substantial commission. I said, how much do you think you're entitled to? Well, how about $2 or $3 million? I said, Jim, you're fired. And that was it. The point is, number 1, I shook hands. I want to honor my handshake. I would have, had I not shaken hand, I would have really listened to Jim. So that's important. Number 2 is sometimes in life to be successful, oftentimes, most of the time, you have to follow your instincts. You have to follow your gut. You have to. Your parents may say wrong. Your whoever may say wrong, but you have to do it. Now, speaking of that, you've got to love what you do. And I've seen so many instances where people with great talent.
Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that greed is not conservative.